Welcome to Health Tech Heroes, where we talk to innovators who are rewriting the DNA of healthcare. Today, we have a unique opportunity to sit down with two key leaders from myLaurel, a company at the forefront of delivering acute and continuous care in the home. We are joined by Jon Branche, the Senior Vice President of Growth, and Dr. Clay Watson, Associate Chief Medical Officer. Jon Branche is a seasoned executive with nearly 2 decades of experience shaping the health tech landscape. From his impactful roles at industry giants like Cerner, Amwell, and Best Buy Health to his current position as Senior Vice President of Growth at myLaurel, Jon has been at the forefront of healthcare innovation. But Jon's passion for health extends beyond the boardroom. A certified personal trainer, nutrition coach, and dedicated youth sports coach. He embodies a holistic approach to well-being. Join us as we dive into the journey of a leader dedicated to scaling technology to enhance patient care and inspiring next generation to achieve their full potential. Today, we also have the privilege of speaking to Dr. Clay Watson, Associate Chief Medical Officer at myLaurel, a board-certified physician in both internal medicine and infectious diseases. Dr. Watson brings a wealth of clinical expertise and executive leadership to the forefront of healthcare innovation. From his pivotal roles at Optum, where he led national programs and advised on the front lines for the COVID pandemic, to his current work in transforming care transitions, Dr. Watson has dedicated his career to delivering high-quality, patient-centric care. Join us to explore the journey of physician leader who's not only shaping the future of disease management, but also redefining what it means to provide compassionate and effective healthcare in the home. Welcome to Health Tech Heroes, Jon and Clay.
Thank you. Great to be here.
We are talking about Health Tech Heroes, so I would love to start with both of your origin stories. You have taken a very different path to arrive at myLaurel. Could you share the pivotal moment or driving force that set you on this career path and ignited your passion for transforming healthcare? Jon, let's start with you. Considering that you have been in health tech companies and you're also really dedicated to all your activities seem to be dedicated somehow that improves health and well-being. Can you explain that spark that you had that started myLaurel?
It's not going to be as dramatic as anybody would like, but I was an inquisitive college student. Senior year, I asked a very respected professor, if you were me at this point in time and you had an industry to go into, what would it be? What's the biggest opportunity to change where most of the inefficiencies are, and lay that out for me? He gave me two, healthcare and IT. And so I took that path, started at Cerner. It was an excellent place for me to start. At the ground level, this was pre-EMR kind of meaningful use and everything like that. So really enjoyed my time there, but it really, that's the place where it started from a career perspective. But as we'll talk about, and as you get into, you see all the great things with healthcare, incredibly talented individuals, clinicians, executives, heartwarming stories, things of solving some of the biggest challenges in modern medicine. And then you see the day-to-day and how this industry couldn't be more inefficient if it tried. And there's so many opportunities to work on in so many different places. And so once you land and you get in and you understand that dynamic, it's really hard to leave. And then you continue to work on new problems over and over. And that's the exciting part.
I want to pin that, like, you cannot be more inefficient even if you tried. And
yeah, please quote that because it's true.
It's I am absolutely beginning to realize that and internalize that, and we have to work towards it. Which brings us to you, Dr. Watson. What was your spark?
I think I would echo Jon in that if you wanted to design the worst system possible, you could sit down and work for years and years and years and toil away and find the 10 worst ways to do it. And then healthcare would outdo you every time and make something even more inefficient. I think what really brings me to care transformation, my origin story, it starts with patients. I love seeing patients. I love working with them one-on-one. And it was an impactful problem that a patient ran into. It was a Saturday. I was rounding in a hospital. Our office was open and just called me and said, hey, you got to get over here. And I thought, oh my gosh, something's wrong. Somebody's having trouble breathing. So I run over there. I'm out of breath and the patient is fine. He looks fine. He's relaxed. He's sitting in a chair, but he takes out a baggie filled with medications, with insulin and syringes, dumps it out onto a metal tray. I can still hear it clanging around, and says, I think I have diabetes and I have all these medicines and I'm not sure what to do. So this was a person who had just spent several days in a hospital, given a diagnosis of diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, and they didn't know what they had. And it just rings in my brain today that we failed this person to not understand what they have or how to take medications or even what these diseases mean. And so that was within the first 3 months of me finishing my infectious disease fellowship. And I was the ID doc. So here I am talking about primary care issues with this patient to try to set them on a path to improving their life and not having to suffer from the ravages of all these diseases. I knew at that point, whatever I was going to do in medicine, I was going to try to make sure that these transitions run more smoothly and that there is more support. I think the worst time to tell somebody a bunch of new technical information is when they're sick and feeling terrible. But that's exactly what we do every time we discharge somebody from the hospital.
I just got goosebumps just listening to that very specific story. That patient desperately coming here and throwing the medicine on the table and saying, and they have been with the experts in the emergency and they didn't know what to do with the medication. Kudos to the patient to come and ask you, because a lot of patients don't, and that is a huge gap. I want to step back a little back further, right? And the question for Jon would be, you said I had the choice between IT and healthcare, but you picked healthcare. Like as a child, maybe during high school or college, why healthcare? Like what drives you to serve people from a healthcare perspective? And just looking at just all the activities, it's a lot to do with health. What is the driving factor? Is there any personal story that you could share? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in healthcare, you have all personal stories. It's not a industry that everybody participates in one form or the other, and how you participate sometimes is out of your control. So, case in point, a year ago, and again, I'll get to your question in a second, but a year ago, my grandmother passed away. She went to the hospital, was discharged out of the hospital without any services, any clue of what to do. The hospital system in upstate New York straddled that with my family to try to go figure it out. 2 days later, she went back to the hospital, neighboring hospital, sat in the ED for 2 hours in agony, never offered a blanket or anything. She went home later that day and passed away. So, I mean, you see that and you go, I can't even believe that that's acceptable anywhere, but it's just not me, right? It's happening throughout the industry. So these are the things that kind of reinvigorate the passion to say, there's no way I can step away from this industry. In fact, I've got to push the pedal down further and really help with the change. If I step back, I mean, just again, I spend, my weekends are busier than my weekdays in terms of coaching my kids, just youth sports, helping train others, and particularly train the elder generation, balance, coordination, things that are going to let them live healthier, longer. You're seeing that individual struggle, seeing them get on the other side of that struggle and seeing what health is, not just the care side of it, is always something that's important. So kind of the combination of that, there's obviously been seminal events throughout my life where loved ones passed away. Somebody's personally, I've been able to achieve certain things, and that, like, I can see it firsthand. So you see the combination of the wins, the losses, you put it all together and say, now let's put it together at scale. And that's kind of how I think about my career in general.
Thank you very much, Jon, for that. And Dr. Watson, a slight modification of question for you, because I think you really do not have choice to walk away from healthcare. You have been, like, from your pre-med onwards, you're pretty much dedicated for this. But what made you even get into pre-med? What made you even get into healthcare, even when you had not that patient experience, right? There was something that sparked in you to get into this. And the second question I want to add on to that is, you really had a big impact at the bedside for sure, but what kind of courage and what kind of mindset it took you to walk away from the bedside and do something as impactful as you're doing right now?
The second one is easier to address than the first. I cheat. I think if you talk to any physician, we all cheat. We have that tug to go and see patients, and so we squeeze it in where we can, whether it's a weekend shift here or or I see patients on the myLaurel platform for sure. We still have to feed that part of us, and it never goes away. And I when somebody tells me they want to go to medical school, I have teenagers, and when their friends say, I want to go to medical school, I try to dig in and find that, are you really hooked in? Are you going to be the person that's got that tug 24/7, 365? Because if it's not there, look around. But if it is there, there's nothing else you can do, because there's only one way to itch that scratch. And to go back to your first, how did I get into healthcare? I think there are guideposts in my life all along where I hit certain points and thought, oh, that'd be pretty neat, or that's something I enjoy, whether it's a love of science and research. I actually started my career in college planning to be a researcher. I was going to get a PhD and work on medical research. I started down that road and found that I wanted to work with people way more than work on something that takes 10 or 15 years to get through approval and then maybe see a benefit. And so it was kind of the love of understanding biology, human systems, how you can impact health at a deeper level, and then steering back into actually wanting to work with them real time and meeting people where they're at so that I can impact their lives. I think another thing too is I started at a place where I'm helping people that have end problems as an infectious disease doctor. They've had diabetes for 15 years and now they're more prone to infections. And so I started wanting to work more and more upstream to head those problems off before they become major issues. So yeah, it's always been a journey in my career. And so moving out of the bedside into a broader position, you cannot address that one patient that I spoke about. I couldn't address that person's issue except with that person. Now, let's say at myLaurel, we're helping a lot of people every single day with that very same issue. And so in order to make changes in the system that really need improvement or irritate you, you have to take that step back from the bedside, look around and say, what could be better? And then go after it full bore.
For that, I want to pin that, put a note on what you said, that we have to address issues earlier, because what the system we have, it's not my term, somebody mentioned it to me, is sick care. Basically, you're taking care of, they're already sick and really sick and ED, and even there, they're not getting help. We want to take care of, we want to be a true healthcare, means we maintain our health even before we become sick. So that kind of brings me to the next question is, you have been a leader in a hospital setting where everything is pretty much evidence-based and you have the authority given to you to make those decisions. But now we are in a private setting. Sometimes you have to work around and get things done without that level of authority as an expert. How do you bring those different leadership styles and bring it to the new environment? And how does that help? What has been your growth area as well? I would love to hear about that.
I think there's reality or the realization that most people in a hospital, most individuals that work inside the system, health plan, health system, whatever it is, nursing home, the people want to see it improve. They want their patients to improve. Everybody wants to help. So it's not a people problem. It's maybe there are some systems that are problematic. And if you can separate the problems of the system from the people and find a way to motivate those individuals for the benefit of the patient, it's much easier to influence. By nature, humans are all on the same team in terms of taking care of somebody who needs extra help. And so you tap into that and say, look, this is an ongoing system problem. I know it creates a headache for you to make this change, but look at how much more benefit they're going to get in the end. Look at how much better off they're going to be, how much more successful they're going to be. To get rid of that sick care so that they don't end up back on your doorstep in the middle of the night 3 nights later. Let's actually make them successful. And I think as long as you have that true North Star of helping individuals, then it's a lot easier to lead people to a new area.
Terrific. This is a great mindset. It changed something in my head when you spoke about this, that to give the benefit of doubt to the people. And it's the system that we are focusing on, not on people doing the things. That's very important.
People aren't doing a bad job. They're not allowed to help the patient due to a system.
And John, you have a lot of experience in different setups, and specifically, you are a leader as a coach in youth sports, and you're a personal trainer. And many industries and many, especially technology-focused industries, have this like, let's go do it, experiment, let's see what works, then we'll do it again, let's see what works, and there is always iterations and move fast. But in healthcare, generally, you want to move fast, but also you want to be deliberate. There is a fine balance between these two, right? Let's test it out and let's see what works. And then if it fails, we'll go on, and maybe true for a lot of other industries. But in healthcare, you got to be careful. How do you balance these two things, John, in your mind, and how you work this out, making sure that we are not hurrying too much, but we are also working with an urgency?
Good question. Maybe you start with the why, right? And so if you think about kind of the core stakeholders in something like a myLaurel, you've got layers of which you've got to get to the why. So at the individual patient level, you got to make sure that it's the right thing for the patient. The patients want something like this to be care in the home. They want to recover at home. They want to heal at home. They want to be with their family, friends, etc. They want to stay out of a setting. I've never heard somebody call themselves a patient, right? They're a person. So it's a win there, but you've got to be able to take that win to the individual clinician who's saying, is this a win for me? Why am I doing this? Good for my patient, but as we've alluded to multiple times, the system rewards individual clinicians, hospitals, health systems very differently than they reward the individual patient. And so you've got to kind of fit within that context. So with the clinicians, why is this a win for me? And you get to that place of, okay, well, it's good for my patient. And actually, I'm tired of walking into a hospital setting where I'm seeing patients sitting in the hallways and beds. I'm seeing the same patients come back, really fighting that burnout. So they're doing right by the patient, fighting the burnout and the overwhelming nature of the demand coming into the system. And then you pan up to the enterprise level to say, why is this beneficial for us, right? So clinically, operationally, financially, we're going to perform better as we invoke some of these care models. And so you've got to have that kind of three-tiered way to think about the why. Because if you don't nail that, to your point, you can't even get to the point of saying how fast, slow, how big, how small do we start? You've got to have that alignment across the board. I agree with you. You have to be deliberate, but I also think there are so many things that are just, it's not like earth shattering to do some of these things. Like, it's not like we're changing the entire paradigm of healthcare. If I see another company or something saying they're transforming things, it's like everybody says that, but little pockets, if you get started and you say, we could just do this tomorrow. It's not that big of a change, and build on it. You can take that approach. Again, a lot of the times we work with systems that say, I want to design everything to the nth degree. And so it's this perfect thing when we launch out, and anybody who knows has been in this industry, that the thing that you design first is never what you end up with, because it is dynamic, it evolves, it changes. And so we've got to be open-minded and learning. And again, this isn't coding and throwing a code out there to consumers to break. We're not breaking things, but what we're doing is fundamentally breaking the entire kind of inefficiency model one step at a time, but you got to start with the why.
John, I know this is a little bit of an abstract question, but how do you communicate why to, say, organizationally, right? Because a lot of your reports are probably not directly, they did not have an origin in healthcare, but they moved on to be part of the healthcare. How do we communicate as a leader the why, the mission, the heart of the company to everyone around you, so that we are all going for the same goal? What would be your secret?
Good news is we're not all robots, right? So we're people. We have our own individual wins. We have, to your point, origin stories. Some are more personal in nature of being in healthcare. Others are, I just got here and I saw how bad it was and I need to fix it. But they have their daily set of challenges. So you've got to really understand and empathize with what do they do on a daily basis, and what is something like what we do help improve or fix challenges that will dramatically make their individual lives better, but the folks around them, and then ultimately the organization. So you got to get to know the people. You got to really kind of lift the covers, show the engine, show the whole car. This is what we're working with. This is why we exist. We can get into messaging and things like that, but we're not in here saying, hey, here's what we have. Let's paint a canvas together. We're coming in very focused, saying these are, core 1A, 2 top challenges that you have that we're solely focused on. That's all we think about. Here's how we do it. Here's how we work with you. You get very pragmatic with it. But then again, in parallel, you have to understand the individual on the other side. Is this solving the problem? Is this improving their life and the lives of those around them? You mix those two, and then you get to a pretty good place pretty quickly.
That's awesome. Take care of your employees. They'll take care of your businesses and transparency. I think the word that he used was lift up the hood and show the whole thing. It's not just say that, hey, this is the direction you need to go. And as much as they want to dig in, the hood is open for you to look through. Coming a little bit more focus on myLaurel itself as a company and its offering. There are two questions hidden in this question. What does Laurel do as the core offering? Why is it important, and why is it so important in the industry that nobody else does? And myLaurel is the only company that does, or is the only company that does this so well? These two questions. So what is the core offering, and what makes this place such a wonderful place for you to be a part of?
So what myLaurel is, I think we'll start there. So we're a mobile medical group. And what we do is we go into the home and provide acute, continuous transitional care. And we focus on those patients that need it the most. And those tend to be your most complex, elderly, frail types of populations. And we're putting clinicians in the home that are physically present with virtual clinicians with a wide skill set, highly trained skill set, I should say. And that's paired with things like technologies, point of care diagnostics, supplies, therapeutics, formulary. And we're packaging all that up and continuously delivering that into the home. And then once we deliver that, we're taking care of those patients over an episode of time to do two fundamental things. One, we don't want them going back to the hospital if they don't need to be there. That's first and foremost. So we've got to design a system that helps them heal at home for the reasons why they originally were in the hospital or were planning to go to the hospital. The second part is, even for that brief period of time, we know there are so many navigational challenges within the healthcare system, so many needs for these types of patients, right? 12,000 of them happening on a daily basis coming in to be 65. They go to the hospital 4 times more than the regular patient. They spend $25,000, $30,000 a year into the system. So there are fundamental challenges with this population that we're trying to address in a short period of time. But what we can do is, as experts in navigating the healthcare services that are available and being a true extension of the organizations we serve, we can put that patient where they need to be, when they need to be, and get the resources there as we completely understand the home environment with them in that short period of time. And so what we're really focused on, not necessarily is just solving that symptomatic issue that drove them there. It's the underlying things that will drive them back. And then if you think about the health span of this individual patient, what are the things, if we don't get under control now, the next couple years are going to be traumatic, problematic, et cetera. And we're addressing that as we can as a partner in the ecosystem of care that's delivered to that patient, usually as an extension of the hospital or the health plan we're serving.
Thank you very much, John. And the same, what does myLaurel mean to you?
I think John did a great job explaining how we do what we do and all the pieces of it. I think there are two things. One, health is made or unmade in the home, in the environment where you live. And so when we see someone in a hospital, in an emergency room, even in a clinic, they're on our turf, and we're dictating how things should be on our turf. When we go into a person's home, we see how they live. We see the challenges that they have. We see all the medicines they've been prescribed before and they didn't throw away, but they don't need to be on. We see that they have stairs that are broken and they're already at risk of falling. All these things, there's so much information to gather when I'm on their turf. Then I can really make a meaningful plan, as well as awareness to the entire rest of the care team, their nephrologist, their cardiologist, everything, as to what's going on with this human, how they live, what are their true struggles outside of their lab numbers. And then we can start to make health rather than dictate what they should be doing, independent of their own living situation. I think, too, healthcare, all of technology is running forward, and there's innovation everywhere, and it's wonderful. But man, it's a lot to keep up with. And we got subspecialists to subspecialists to those subspecialists. In cardiology, we have electrophysiologists, interventional cardiologists, non-interventional cardiologists. We have everything. It's tough to keep up with everything, right? And so we are there to spend not just money, but we spend time with the patient, educating them, and really letting them know, here's all the stuff you need to know in an effort to heal that fracture. Healthcare is fractured by all those specialists, not because they want to, just because there's so much to know in their own area. And what we want to do is tie it all together in a single package, let the person know what's going on with them, and let the rest of the team know what everybody else is doing. So I think it is to make health on their terms, and it is to heal the fractures in medicine.
Meeting patients where they are, in this case, literally where they are. So, John, this question is for you. This is something that you actually mentioned that, hey, we are like predicting what's going to happen and we are stopping that incident to happen. So that creates a barrier in healthcare where we are actually asking people to spend time and money on some event that hopefully is never going to happen. So if there is an event that happens like an emergency, it's an immediate use case. It's easy to convince people, but something that is not going to happen, that's a hard barrier to cross. My question is, when you're trying to convince people to pay for something that is not going to happen, that brings a bigger barrier. And just to understand, like, who pays for myLaurel and how do you convince them to actually fund the project, and what kind of conversations are why it is so important for them to be able to afford this?
Yeah, so where I'll start is to your premise of it may or may not happen. We start with the data. So this is happening. We're not like asking, is this happening or not? Like, we know it's happening because we see it in the data. And absent a service or a solution like this, you will continue with status quo, which is much, much worse than trying to address the problem. As we've just highlighted before, the silver tsunami, the demand is not slowing down, it's only increasing. The types of demand that's going to be strained on the hospital is only going to be worse, not better. And so we know that. We also can look at individual population levels and see the utilization trends and going that way. And so you can quantify pretty quickly the business case of doing something about it, particularly with myLaurel, generates a significant return in a matter of 90 days or less to start seeing that actual return and that actual benefit to the system. And so you start with that premise, let the data drive it. Let's all get a clear understanding. And when we talk about capacity within the hospital, it's a critical topic, and not done correctly. One, kills your patient experience. Two, kills your financial performance because those that are not able to get the care they need are being deferred out or not in. And three, if you're keeping patients in too long who don't necessarily need to be there, there's an opportunity cost there, the quality and a clinical challenge there too of keeping patients there. So overall, the dynamic of the business case, the operations of, is there a return here, is there? And we spend a lot of time up front helping quantify that. So then when you get to that, you say, who's paying? So it depends on who we're working with, right? And it's what's the problems that we're solving. I started out saying we're very, very specific with the subset of challenges we solve for the particular buyers that we're working with. In this case, hospitals, we'd work with them and be a service to them that's generating that return that I mentioned, 3-to-1 ROI in about the first 90 days. When we work with health plans, they've got a different spin on the world, very similar in terms of what they're trying to accomplish in reducing unnecessary hospitalizations, but we work with them, same premise, business case, here's the opportunity, and then we work with them on the arrangement there. I think the single most unique thing about myLaurel in this space in general is we are one of the only companies, care models, that can actually bring both of them in the same room at the same time and align around a single value metric. You see a lot of these models now where it's really just taking certain level of care inside the hospital, putting it in the home, and asking for that same kind of reimbursement strategy model. And you got two sides saying, well, I think it should be lower, I think this should be higher, and you haggle over it, and you're not really centered around value anymore. You're just taking that kind of dynamic of payer provider, putting it in the home without really solving and focusing on the real value, which is keeping the individual patient out, which betters you, the hospital, betters you, the payer. You combine them together and you align around that value. And then you have companies like myLaurel who says, we feel so comfortable in the ability to care for the patient in the home, we'll actually put our business model at risk to say, if they go back into the hospital, we're not even going to get paid at all. And then you bring those parties together and say, how can we create a model uniquely local that benefits the patients, the clinicians, the payers all together keeping patients out of the hospital, but getting wins for both sides. And I think that's the single unique point that for the last 10 years being in the care at home space, primary care, chronic care, hospital at home, all of these models, I think this is one of the most unique times I've been in this situation where you're getting broad consensus across the board. And there's not usually a squeaky wheel that says, this doesn't directly align with how I think about the world, so I don't want to do it.
That was one of the critical things that comes to my mind when we are making it. It's like, as I said, it's a subtle change, but still it does impact economics quite dramatically, considering that you are actually addressing the stakeholders, the providers and the patients at the same time. Centered around value is an amazing thing. I would love to, at some point in the future, perhaps dive deeper and deeper into that. There are like 100 questions within those. But going back to you, Dr. Watson, it's similar, but it's not the same question. When you look at from a patient's perspective as a physician, adherence could be an issue. But why would the patients adhere to myLaurel's recommendations for, say, even 90 days? You can see changes in the population level, but you may not see the same changes in individual patients. How do we convince our patients to adhere to this, and what kind of mindset change they have to agree to for us to be successful?
Great question. I think too, we're not alone in this. And our clients, health systems, payers, as well as our patients, we all want the same thing. We're all working towards the same thing. I think I could talk to both of you. I could talk to anyone who might listen to this and say, have you ever tried to improve your health via eating or exercising or whatever it could be? Everybody wants the same end goal. And so one thing we do is we work with our client payers, our client health systems. What are you already doing to help patients? Can we be a force multiplier by coaching people into those programs and demonstrating how those programs will benefit you, the patient? I think also, as I said before, we're in the home, we're in their environment, and we're seeing the little barriers, not the big barriers, not the uncontrollable things that no one can foresee, but the little things that derail people. And those are the ones that we address specifically as to how they negatively impact your health, and we help troubleshoot them. So we have a very high touch model. Our nurses are speaking with the patients very frequently, so patients get the message reinforced, explained by multiple different people, and it's easier to hear the message when everyone's trying to speak your language, and then connecting them back into our partners' services where they can be successful long term. And so I think it's really a lot of hand-holding around that critical initiation and launch period that makes patients more successful in the long term.
In a way, I see those parallels to that patient coming and throwing all that insulin and drugs on the table and saying, what do I do now?
It never leaves my brain.
Yeah. And I see those parallels here. These patients are coming, and I think it's an important point that it is also a force multiplier. We are not trying to take away what they already have, but we are actually enhancing
We're additive.
what they already
That's right.
added. Yeah. So there might be a big resistance if they say like, oh, we have to deal with us and you cannot go back to system you have. What that means is more work for you because it has to be personalized at every single aspect for every single patient and get into the nuance. I'm sure you have one success story that you love, that, hey, this is what I talk to when people not related to healthcare ask me. This is the story I share. And the second question is, there are so many successes, but also I'm sure you have challenges. From your perspective, what is that success and what is that challenge?
Every day we get success stories. Two very quick ones that I can share. And Jon has heard one many times, so hopefully I don't torture him too much. Essentially, we had what I would say is our typical type of patient. Multiple chronic diseases, multiple medications, mostly in pill form. Unfortunately, she had fallen and broken her wrist. Okay, I mean, that's a break. It's not a hip break. You're still walking. Things are good. A normal discharge from the hospital. Great. Everything should be easy here. Except that when you have a broken wrist, you have a brace around here, and you can't get a cap on your medication bottle. So her medication bottles were in a sack, uncapped, and all the medications mixed up and flowing around. And she was taking a green one and a pink one and a white one and a blue one, not knowing which medications they were or what they were for. She understood her diseases. She understood that she needed to take her medications. She had the medications. And it was because we were present in the home, we saw how she was getting those meds to herself and the errors of that. And we were able to sort that out for her, resort her medications, tell her what they are and when to take them, and put them in a container that didn't require her to use her broken wrist to open. I didn't make a fancy diagnosis. We didn't come in with the latest, greatest technology to solve a problem. We simply observed a major issue and came up with a solution that probably impacted the trajectory of the rest of her life because the medications were controlling her diseases as long as they were taken correctly. I think that's something important to realize, how important it is to see someone in their home. One other quick one. We very recently, had a patient who was at the end of life. She had very end-stage lung troubles as well as neurologic issues. And she had already given her wishes to her family that she wanted to be at home. No more hospitalization, nothing. Big family. And as soon as mom was not able to advocate for herself, some wanted her to go back to the hospital. Others wanted to honor the wishes. Our provider stepped in and spoke with the family multiple times per day over about a 5-day period. And the patient was able to have her ultimate wishes fulfilled, where she got to remain at home through the end of her life. The family all got on the same page just because of our providers' extra efforts in calling them and talking to them, explaining what was going on, helping them understand that this is what she wanted and the hospital couldn't do anything to reverse this. So it is all about building health, but it's also, we're going to honor the patient's wishes at the end. And I think that is an equally powerful and important individual thing that myLaurel can bring to the table.
I just, if can spend a few seconds on the challenge you see is the biggest challenge, if a couple of sentences.
Are so many. And I think what we do is unique, and the best way we can do it, Jon alluded to earlier, as a shared service. And so we need to have health systems and payers on the same page with this because it is a unique service. It is an effective service, and it's best when we can work with multiple clients in one region to really bring a lot of resources into a single area. I would say that's one of the bigger challenges.
And Jon, your favorite, the thing that wakes you up and says, I'm doing meaningful work. And what is that story for you and the challenges?
I would say just not being a clinician, being able to see and treat these patients, but hearing the stories. We get them literally on a daily basis. So it's really exciting to hear. One that stuck with me is, again, because I think about the feeling of helplessness. Clay touched on it a little bit, but whether a caregiver or the individual patient or the family members around, that feeling of helplessness, I can't help them, is always a tough thing. So there was a 79-year-old woman that we were treating, nonverbal, had a feeding tube in. 3 days before we started treating her, she was in the hospital. It slid out of place. Extraordinary pain for her. She can't communicate. Her husband, who was about, I think he was 7 years older, was there. He's trying to understand what's going on. They go into the ER. They sit there for, I think it was 90 minutes. She's crying in agony. He's there crying because he has no idea how to help her. And so you have that experience. The good part of this story is that 3 days after, we're in the home, similar experience. We're there within 90 minutes. We sit down with him and her, we address the issue, and he comes us crying again from a different emotion, saying, thank you so much for solving the issue here. I didn't have to go and live through that where I couldn't help my wife. And so you hear stuff like that and you're like, wow, this is the powerful things that happen when you, as you said, meet the patient where they are, directly where they are, solve the issue, help the caregivers around them, and set a path for if this happens again, this is what needs to happen. So that one sticks with me just because, again, that helplessness feeling. And to your question on challenges, there's a slew of them on any given day, but I'll come back to the alignment challenge, right? If you have those layers of administrative, enterprise, kind of clinician and patient, and any one of those are misaligned with what you're trying to do, it will impact the overall program. So it's always having that compass coming back to saying, guys, I know today in particular, this individual is having a challenge with this model for whatever reason it may be. Let's step back. Why are we doing it? What is the benefit for you individual? What is it for the enterprise? What is it for the patient? You bring those together and then you can kind of continue on the path. But if you don't have those constant touch points in alignment, any which one will impact your ability to kind of deliver this and scale it.
And I would love to make a note of something that you said, and it was super powerful, is that the husband said that I don't have to live through that.
This is happening
Sometimes,
thousands of times a day
yeah, a
with
day.
families across the country. Yeah.
And even if you're not that sick before you think about going to the emergency, just that experience probably makes you require the admission. It is that's how I feel sometimes when I go through when I have experienced myself an emergency situation. Luckily, it did not result in admission, but it comes pretty close to it. And it's a 86-year-old person who is actually taking a 79-year-old sick person. And
Yeah.
his health could also go down. But now we are seeing them and they can't imagine how grateful they would have been for that. We will change gears a little bit and get into a leadership perspective from your end. I think it's very important that you have gone through this experience and we share this experience with new entrepreneurs and leaders as well. We are a health tech podcast as well. What are the emerging technologies do you think is going to have the biggest impact on healthcare in next year or 2 years? 3 years might be way too long to predict anything, but maybe in next year or two. Dr. Watson, you want to take it first and then John?
I think this could be an entire series because there is so much innovation coming. I think I am particularly looking closely at a few things. One would be patient monitoring. So we all have monitors. I have my iWatch here, or you can have an Oura Ring or whatever gadget you want to improve your sleep or your heart rate. I think that we can put small boxes about this size into a patient's room or into their home, and it monitors their vitals. It monitors how they're walking. And through machine learning, it becomes predictive in advance of them feeling so bad that they go to the doctor. It gives us a day or 2 or 3 warning that something is going on. Upstream intervention is so much better than emergent intervention because damage is already occurring to whatever organ system is being affected. Emergent intervention then is some damage is already done. But if we can catch it upstream, all the better. I think that is going to be critical. I think it could be a way to deploy in-home services more efficiently and effectively. And then 2, of course, I hate to say it because everybody's going to say it, but artificial intelligence in terms of analysis. We have so much data about patient. What are the inputs? What are the predictors of disease states? Yes, readiness of going home, helping physicians and other clinicians with diagnostics. There's so much application here. Those are going to be revolutionary near-term things. I mean, it's already being used. I think it's going to go mainstream in the next couple of years, as you mentioned, and we'll see tremendous benefits from that. I'm excited for that.
And to John's point and your point, these are not issues that are dramatic changes. We always knew, perhaps we knew this 30 years ago, that this is what needs to be done. It is just that we have the means to do it. And
it's tangible right now. Yeah.
John, from your perspective, what do you think is going to be super impactful in next year or 2?
So having spent the majority of my career, 20 years or so in the health tech space in particular, every day I woke up at a point in time and thought about remote monitoring and all the devices, services you could provide for that. And going through my career, it was, build the plumbing, the foundation, the EMR, clean, understand the data, kind of put it into a common ontology to understand what it means. And then this last part is where I think the phase is. Insight to action, it's reducing noise, improving signal. So it's not about how cool my device is or anything and all the data I can get. It's how smart am I with the data that's coming across? What do I need to pay attention to? And give me that trigger and action when I need to go and pay attention to it now. So that's probably the thing I think is finally coming to fruition. It's not about people out there saying how cool my device is. Look at all of these parameter things I can find for you. Like nobody on the other side honestly cares, but really they're trying to get to what do I need to pay attention to and when do I need to pay attention to it? And I think the systems are getting smarter. We can point to AI, but I think just history and learning through this, people are just getting smarter, and it doesn't have to be this robust AI tool to help you identify that. Now with AI coming on, it actually scales it and kind of magnifies the impact. One in particular that I'll talk about is patient identification. There are a subset of services and solutions that can be provided to patients everywhere. You want to know which one, when, and how to go deliver it. In our world, we look at who are the patients that don't need to be in the hospital right now. They are on the mend. They can be cared for in the home safely, effectively. And that's vital space that hospital truly needs, as we talked about the demand before. So as you look at that, what are the key things I need to understand about that individual so that I can take them out now? When you go into the home, what are the things I need to understand about those patients where I need to intervene now versus I need to intervene at some other frequency? So getting better with understanding the real-time health and trajectory of the patient, and then being able to intervene with them there. The last one I'll mention is just, it's not the glamorous where it gets all the headlines, but administratively, you can't imagine how many resources are dedicated to the most simple, redundant tasks. Again, either it's the provider side battling with the payer and what's the right payment, the right time, is it the right service, all of this stuff. That's what I'm most excited about, AI and technology. Just remove all of that and let this be done with clicks, not with massive amount of people haggling over something simple. And I think that's coming much sooner than people expect. It's pretty much here.
Thank you very much, John, for that view of where this is going, and especially based on your 20 years of health tech experience. I think this is going to be key advice. So in your statement, you said this haggling process going on with payers and providers. And here I have a big concern with this, because payers are spending a lot of money on health tech and AI, and so are the providers, the health systems, not necessarily the providers as in the bedside providers. I think they are kind of left behind too at this point, and it happens with technology. The doctors, they end up doing things that they really don't want to do, makes things inefficient. But my question to you is, now the payers and providers are haggling the prices, and both of them, they have their AIs, so it is essentially, and that haggling becomes really efficient. This AI says something, this AI comes up with a rebuttal, then AI is like fighting with each other, leaving humans out of the loop, which is probably good because AIs are fighting not against the humans. But what happens is the patients are not putting as much resources into this. So in this haggling, what will happen to the patients, do you think, as health tech things that we are primarily concerned about? Would the burden land on the patients to handle because they have got what the two powerful stakeholders have taken everything out of it? But who takes the burden at the end? Is there something we can do about right now? We can help that system out a little bit.
Yeah, and it's honestly, I don't think it's going to come down to technology. It's going to come down to strategic leadership and steering the ship for your organizations, right? And so what is the key thing you as an organization, whether you're a hospital health plan, something in between, want to be known for? And who is the one that you want to be known for that? So you're treating patients, members, whatever you want to call them. What is that experience you want? Why do they want to be with your system? What do you want to be known for? And so when you kind of take that strategic lens, it's not about the technologies to deploy, it's the strategies you're trying to take around what the brand is, what the quality experience and everything you want. So when you have that, as long as that strategy and operational plan is in place, then you deploy the technologies. So I think those that do that are going to have models where they can either vertically align or they can create these pockets of high value, high level of care that hits across the continuum of where these patients, consumers, members need to be, where they will enjoy those experiences and thus become more entrenched with those organizations and become their customers long term. Those that take technologies because they're cool and they work well and deploy them at problems will perpetuate this problem of lack of value being created. And so you'll just magnify the scale of the problem that you're going to have to solve down the line. And those are the ones that are truly at risk for what is coming. If you're centered around value and the ones that are doing it really successfully, you're going to be left far, far behind. Even though you might have an advanced technology stack, it's not going to work to your benefit. So I don't think it's a technology problem, to be honest with you. I think you got to get the strategy, you got to get the relationships and the operational plan down. Then where it's appropriate, apply the technologies.
And thank you very much, John. Dr. Watson, you have any comments on that as well?
I agree 100%. And sometimes it's hard to say that. But yes, I agree with you, John. It comes down to philosophy and value. So John mentioned it a couple times, but I want to highlight value, value, value. Patients, people are going to understand high quality service and their outcomes. What's the best way to mitigate your expenses to the hospital? Well, you don't end up there. So you take care of your health. We get out of sick care and we really focus on building towards health. 2, what services can we take out of the emergency department, out of the hospital, and provide them at a lower cost because they're not emergent and always on demand? What do we do outside the hospital that provides that value to our patient, but also to the systems? And I think the systems and the payers are moving towards value, and those that are looking for the short-term win on price, those are the ones that are going to have the cool tech stack standing out in the rain because nobody wants to go there because they know they're getting fleeced for something that's not necessarily building health. And so I would really focus on not only the philosophy of building health, but being able to communicate that value to payers and patients alike.
I think this kind of lit a bulb in my head about, I was thinking more on the payer and what the providers are going to do, but services like yourself can become the voice of the patients if your values are in place and exactly doing what you're doing and continue doing that. For an entrepreneur and a leader, what is this one non-negotiable mindset that need to bring to health tech at this point of time? I think you alluded to it, Dr. Watson. So can we continue on that conversation? What is that one non-negotiable, especially when things are changing, that a leader and an entrepreneur has to bring to the health tech or healthcare area?
I want to work on things that I enjoy. And so you have to have some passion in it and behind it. And 2, you need your North Star. You start with your why, as John said earlier. How is this going to help someone else? How will this benefit my patient? So I need, before idea ever leaves my head and my mouth, I need to start pressure testing it against how can I help other people with this? Is this viable? Then I need to talk to trusted resources and say, hey, what do you think about this? And once I put it out there, don't take pride of ownership. Let's make the best thing. Let's get it done the right way rather than, oh, this is my idea and it's got to look like this. I think that if you're passionate and your North Star, whatever that may be, hopefully helping other people, benefiting them, are met, then you're much further down the road towards success than many others. We see lots of good ideas die on the vine, and I think that it's undone by a lack of those 2 things. And then lastly, learn how to operate, learn how to move it forward at least a little bit each day, because things can stagnate too. John alluded to it earlier, where we don't need the very perfect thing right out of the gate. We need to get it out the gate, test it, and improve it over time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Watson. John?
I would say you're in a constant state of learning. So if I think about like the 4 stages of competence, and I think about my healthcare journey, you get in, you don't know what you don't know, and you kind of slowly get through and you get to a point where you'll never know enough in healthcare. And so to be successful in particular, coming from the technology side too, your core stakeholders, buyers, et cetera, are going to be those that live healthcare. Every day, this is what they're doing. They're not living this cool new widget, gadget, feature, thing that you're doing on the technology side. You've got to be the liaison to bridge the gap between why this technology is powerful for what you're trying to accomplish. The only way you do that is learn. You got to constantly learn and understand the environment of healthcare. And once you get in, you realize how much you don't know, and you've got to try to shrink that gap. And the last thing I would say about that in particular is learn in your off hours. And so a lot of times people get fixated on the time you spend and the hours you work, you love it and all that sort of thing. This is not easy. It will never be easy. But what you can't do is, whether it's for your employer, if you're, specifically for your employer, trying to learn things on the clock. You've been signed up to do a job. You've got to go execute on the job that you've been hired to do. Learn in your off hours. get better in the off hours, continue to improve. And again, it's kind of translates to sports and things. Like I don't come to a game to practice. I come to refine my skill set in the off hours I'm practicing. So especially for those younger individuals getting into this, you have to have that work ethic that after hours, I'm finding ways to improve. If I'm trying to work with hospitals, I have to know how they think, how they operate, what keeps them up at night, and what I'm going to do to help solve that. And if I'm not fluent with that, then you're not working hard enough.
Excuse me, I feel like I need to do some push-ups right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. I was exactly thinking about that. My God, I need to go give me 50 right now. As I said, yeah, keep your weekends are busier than your weekdays. And I think this alludes to that initial comment that you made. And I try to keep my Saturdays mornings a little lazy, but I think I need to rethink that strategy now. With that, if you have a magic wand that you can change one thing in the healthcare system, what would be that?
I guess I would again cheat and I would wish for more wishes. I would change more than one thing. But if it's really just one thing, I think there's a lot of focus on finance and transaction. Understandably so. Healthcare is expensive. I would put more focus on time. Time at the bedside equals clarity for the patient, and clarity is an investment that pays dividends in time and visits down the road. Well, I would like things that take clinicians away from patients to decrease. I think technology can help with a lot of that, and more time invested in connecting and education would be tremendously beneficial. It is something I see repeatedly missing from healthcare in general, and it's something that I seek to protect inside of myLaurel. We are working towards efficiency in everything, but the sacred cow is that time with the patient. We're not going to mess with that. We're going to take the time it needs to get the job done so that the patient understands. And that is where I would start with my magic wand.
Wonderful. Invest in time. And Jon?
Yeah, I would just have a big giant reset button and I would hit it. And then I would give us 6 months with all the industry stakeholders in a room together to go hammer out. Now that you've got advanced technologies, digital infrastructures, how do we get a shared economic model that benefits everybody and not exploits the individual patient and increases prices year after year, and really get to a place of value? Because we all know there's more than enough money in healthcare. It's just how it's distributed and how it's spent today is the biggest challenge. So absent that, hitting a big reset button, what I would do is bring it back to how do we bring the economic accountability more on the shoulders of the consumer? What I mean by that is not just have them spend more, but actually have them have more decision-making accountability in what they're doing, whether they're spending their money and the benefit they're getting from it. And I think the more and more you get the individual patient voting with where they're spending their time for those services they need, the more you'll have the industry rally around what's truly valuable and not what's going to make them money each and every time.
Thank you very much. Yep, people will be grappling for that reset button. There are a lot of people stopping you from
Who
getting
gets
it.
to hit it first?
Yeah.
I know. You need to get I can like imagine the whole scrimmage going on there. You need to have a game
Well,
plan
the
there.
key is just one person has to hit it, but then you've got a time clock. I only give you 6
yeah.
months. You got to figure it out.
Yeah, that's so. Let me just dive into my last question. Is you have 90 seconds to share anything that I might have missed during my questions, or you think is super important to reiterate. And the question is yours. The answer is yours. Stage is yours. Let's start with Jon and then Dr. Watson.
In my mind, I always want to come back to the pragmatic and the operational. The world that we live in now, where we've got this pivotal moment where we've got all of these operational models, care models, that are figuring out we're always going to need hospitals. We're always going to need outpatient medical centers. We're always going to need physical settings for people to go to because of the specialization of care that needs to be delivered there. Of course, over time, devices, assistant devices, robots, whatever you want to call them, are going to get better over time where the generalist will be more efficient and doesn't have to be specialized. But for the sake of this, you're going to have all these physical infrastructure still in place. I think it's really imperative on people now to think through the multitude of models across the continuum, in particular, that can be delivered in the home, and not to have a reset moment. But I think we've gotten so far so fast with particular models of care and physically picking up institutional kind of economic and care models from physical settings and trying to port them into the home. And what we're finding out of the gate, which is unfortunate because it's souring a lot of people, is these models are too complex to deliver in the home. But when you get back to the roots of it, the clinical skill sets, the capabilities, the supporting technology, supplies are all there to be able to deliver efficient, effective care in the home. And we've talked about the patient scenarios and anecdotes. I think if we try to replicate creating a hospital, replicate creating a post-acute facility, institutional model inside the home, it's never going to scale the way it could. And it's trying to urge the industry leaders to think and be creative around what is my goal with delivering care in the home? What is the best way to get there? And at the end of the day, the answer is not going to be it's this one thing. It's going to be a multitude of things, but you've got to have the flexibility to think through it, solve the right problems, quantify it, get the outcomes, and then be able to then arrange the economic models to fit that with the patient in mind. So that would just be my cautionary thing, is sometimes we get really fast, especially the pandemic really sped things up. And we thought, let's just take this model and throw it here and then just let's keep going with it. I think there's an opportunity to sit back and say, what are all the things we should be doing, could be doing? And let's put that together and not just make it's either this thing or it's nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking along similar lines. I have faith in people. I do not have faith in our systems. If we look at and I don't mean health systems, I mean the structure upon which the American health care is built. It's archaic layer on top of archaic layer, and we can move beyond that now. We should move beyond that. Too often I see people fall back to protectionism of their fiefdom because it's been working for 40 years, and we have to move outside of that. Technology has moved us forward, capabilities have moved us forward, and we have a greater understanding of what people need, which means we have a greater opportunity for some change in the system. And so I would put my faith in individuals to come up with a much better system than we have today. And try to sweep away some of those archaic systems, laws, whatever regulations stand in the way of actually building a system that functions for humans in today's world, rather than what worked in the 60s and 70s, which is where a lot of our system is built from. It's a little bit pie in the sky. I get that. But at least a frame shift in your own mind allows you to see what's possible. And like what we're trying to do, find a way through until we can get rid of some of those systems that stand in the way.
With that, thank you very much, Dr. Watson, and thank you very much, John. I think we are going towards a reset button right here.